We begin with a strange paradox. Most of us are awake, yet very few of us are truly here, eyes open, screens glowing, calendars full, and still something essential sleeps. Imagine a man driving home from work. The road bends, traffic lights change, music hums in the background. He arrives, parks, steps inside his home, and suddenly realizes he remembers almost nothing about the journey. No danger, no miracle, just absence. Life happened, but he was not present for it. This is not a failure. It is a design. Modern life rewards efficiency, not awareness. We are praised for multitasking, optimizing, streamlining. We automate our finances, our homes, our conversations, and eventually our consciousness. Autopilot becomes a survival strategy. It saves energy. It reduces friction. It allows us to function in a world that never stops asking for more. And yet, beneath this smooth functioning, a quiet hunger grows. You feel it in the moments between notifications, in the strange restlessness that appears even when everything is fine, in the sense that time is moving faster while you are somehow standing still. Autopilot living is not laziness. It is the mind's attempt to protect itself, to repeat what is known rather than risk what is alive, to stay within familiar loops rather than step into the raw unpredictability of presence. Because presence is dangerous. To be fully awake means to feel, not selectively, but honestly. Joy, yes, but also grief, love, and the vulnerability it demands, freedom, and the responsibility that follows. So we trade aliveness for control. We trade wonder for predictability. We trade the vastness of now for the comfort of routine. And the tragedy is not that we do this, but that we forget we are doing it. Awakening does not begin with adding something to your life. It begins with noticing what has quietly disappeared. The texture of ordinary moments, the sound of your own breath, the subtle intelligence of your body, the mystery hiding inside the familiar. Most people believe awakening requires a dramatic event, a breakdown, a loss, a revelation on a mountain or in a book. But awakening often begins much more quietly, almost shyly. It begins with a question that refuses to go away. Is this all there is? Not spoken with despair, but with curiosity, because somewhere inside you already knows life was never meant to be merely managed. It was meant to be encountered. And the moment you sense that something is missing, something begins to wake up, not all at once, not heroically, but gently, like a light turning on in a room you didn't realize had gone dark. To understand how we fell asleep, we must look not at life, but at the mind. The mind is a magnificent machine. It categorizes, predicts, remembers, plans. It builds identities the way spiders build webs, intricate, functional, and incredibly sticky. And once the web is complete, the mind begins to live inside it. Thoughts repeat themselves. Stories harden. Habits form grooves so deep they feel inevitable. This is who I am. This is how life works. This is what is possible for me. The mind loves certainty more than truth. Certainty feels safe. Truth feels open-ended. So the mind constructs a narrative self, a character with a past, preferences, fears, ambitions, and then spends its energy protecting that character from disruption. Autopilot is simply the mind running this program, over and over again, refining it, defending it, polishing it. You wake up not as a fresh being, but as yesterday's conclusions. And slowly, subtly, you begin to mistake the map for the territory. Thought becomes reality. Reaction becomes identity. Memory becomes destiny. Fear plays a central role here. Not dramatic fear, but quiet, practical fear. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of discomfort. Fear of losing one's place in the story. So the mind stays busy, planning the future, replaying the past, evaluating, judging, rehearsing. Notice this, autopilot living is almost always temporal. It lives elsewhere, rarely here. The present moment is too raw, too unfiltered. It cannot be fully controlled, and so the mind visits it briefly, like a tourist, before retreating back into thought. Yet the mind was never meant to be the master. It was meant to be a tool, a brilliant one, but a tool nonetheless. Awakening begins the moment you stop asking, "What should I think?" and start asking, "What is actually happening right now?" Not philosophically, sensually, directly. The feeling of your body sitting, the sound of these words arriving and fading, the subtle movement of emotion beneath understanding. When you observe the mind instead of obeying it, something extraordinary occurs. Space appears. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer own you. Emotions still move, but they no longer define you. You begin to see that autopilot was never life itself. It was life filtered through habit. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. The machine does not break. It simply loosens its grip. Awakening rarely arrives politely. It enters through cracks, a loss that dismantles your assumptions, a moment of beauty that stops time, a question that shatters a long-held belief, a silence so deep it makes thought feel unnecessary. These moments feel disruptive because they interrupt the program. The mind stutters, the usual explanations fail, and for a brief instant, you are simply here, unarmored, unprepared, alive. Many people try to avoid these cracks. They label them as problems, inconveniences, failures. But from another angle, they are invitations. Suffering, in particular, has a strange intelligence. It strips away illusions not out of cruelty, but precision. It reveals what was never solid. It exposes the false bargains we made, security in exchange for authenticity, comfort in exchange for truth. Awakening is not about becoming someone better. It is about becoming someone truer, and truth does not always feel good at first. When control dissolves, fear often rushes in. The ego panics. It asks, if I am not my roles, my habits, my story, then who am I? This question feels terrifying because it has no immediate answer, but that is its power. In not knowing, something deeper listens. Awakening is not an achievement. It is a surrender, not of intelligence, but of false certainty. You stop trying to dominate life and begin to participate in it. You realize that control was never real, only assumed. And in that realization, a softer strength emerges. You begin to notice the simple miracle of being conscious at all, of feeling rain, of hearing laughter, of sitting quietly without needing to improve the moment. Life stops being a problem to solve and becomes a mystery to inhabit. The cracks widen, not violently, but naturally. Old patterns loosen. Attention deepens. You are no longer rushing to get somewhere else because you sense something essential is already here. And though nothing outward may change immediately, everything inward has shifted. You are no longer asleep. You are beginning to wake up, not to escape the world, but to finally meet it. As awareness deepens, something unexpected happens. The self you thought you were begins to feel strangely porous. Not gone, just less solid. You notice how identity is assembled moment by moment. A thought appears, I am confident. Another follows, I am failing. The mind stitches these fragments together into a character and calls it me. But when watched closely, the stitching loosens. You begin to see the seams. Awakening is not the destruction of the self. It is seeing the self as a process rather than a possession. This is where many become afraid. Because if identity is fluid, then who stands at the center? Who loves? Who chooses? Who acts? The answer is quieter than expected. Awareness itself does not need armor. It does not need to defend an image. It meets each moment without rehearsal. It listens before it reacts. When you observe a thought without immediately believing it, you create a pause, a sacred hesitation. In that pause, freedom appears. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to see clearly. You realize how often the ego speaks in urgency. It demands immediate action, immediate certainty, immediate validation. Presence, by contrast, has patience. It does not rush to conclude. It allows contradictions to coexist. You can be afraid and grounded, confident and uncertain, strong and tender at the same time. This is the dance between opposites the sages spoke of, not choosing one side, but allowing both to inform you. Love, too, changes here. On autopilot, love is often transactional, appreciation exchanged for security, affection for approval. But in awareness, love becomes an offering without guarantees. You see others not as characters in your story, but as mysteries unfolding beside you. This is both liberating and humbling. To meet someone without armor means you may be touched and hurt, but it also means you may finally see and be seen. Awakening does not make you invulnerable. It makes you honest, and honesty, though it trembles, is far more alive than protection. You stop asking, "How do I appear?" and begin asking, "Am I here?" The answer is not conceptual. It is felt. Time behaves differently when you are awake, on autopilot. Time is something you chase or flee. The future pulls, the past tugs. The present is merely a bridge between regrets and expectations, but awareness returns time to its rightful place. Now, here, not as a point on a clock, but as a living field. You begin to notice how fear is almost always future-oriented, rehearsing loss, anticipating pain, and how regret lives in memory, replaying what cannot be changed. Autopilot oscillates between these two, rarely resting. Awakening invites you to step out of that oscillation, not permanently, but repeatedly. Each time you return to the immediacy of experience, fear loosens its grip, not because life becomes safe, but because you stop living in anticipation of harm. You learn to trust your capacity to meet what arises. This transforms intimacy. Conversations slow, listening deepens, silence becomes less awkward, more expressive. You are no longer waiting for your turn to speak. You are present for what is being said. And in that presence, connection happens naturally. Impermanence, once terrifying, becomes a teacher. You realize that moments are precious because they pass. Love matters because it is fragile. Life is meaningful because it is temporary. Awakening does not remove fear of loss. It reframes it. You stop trying to possess experience and begin to participate in it. You hold lightly. You appreciate deeply. This is courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to remain present despite it. You notice how often you had postponed living. After this project, after this phase, after I become someone else, awareness interrupts that postponement. It whispers, gently but firmly, "This is it," not as a threat, as an invitation. So how does one live awake in an automated world? Not by rejecting technology or routines, but by inhabiting them consciously. You still plan, still work, still participate, but you are no longer lost inside the machinery. You pause, you breathe, you notice. Small moments become portals. Washing your hands, walking to the car, waiting in line. These are no longer empty gaps to be filled, but opportunities to return. Awakening is not a destination you reach once and for all. It is a practice of remembering. Remembering to feel your feet on the ground. Remembering to listen without preparing a reply. Remembering that this moment, ordinary as it seems, will never appear again. Compassion grows naturally here, not as a moral command, but as recognition. You see your own conditioning in others. Their defenses make sense. Their fears are familiar. Judgment softens. You stop needing to win every argument, prove every point, secure every outcome. You trust the intelligence of presence to guide action when action is needed, and stillness when it is not. Life regains its rhythm, not rushed, not stagnant, responsive. And perhaps the greatest gift of awakening is this: you realize you were never meant to escape the world, only to meet it fully. Nothing mystical is added. Nothing human is removed. You simply stop sleepwalking. You open your eyes inside your own life. And in that opening, there is a quiet joy, not ecstatic, not loud, but steady. A joy that comes from being aligned with what is, rather than fighting it. So sit here for a moment. Notice the breath that was already breathing before you paid attention. Notice the awareness that hears these words without effort. Notice the stillness beneath the movement. This is not an idea. It is an experience, and it has been waiting for you, patiently, all along.